You're pretty much looking at the final roster here with some pieces maybe coming in here and there. But man, I am so excited, EJ, for what's here. Put this little roster here for you guys, kind of just a depth chart to kind of look at. There's two defensive depth charts here. One is 3-4, the other is a 4-3. But we might be running a 3-3-5, right? You just don't know. But I think
Right.
the good news is that we're looking at a very multiple style defense approach, I think, right? You can go from a 3-4 to a 4-3 if you want to do a nickel look, or you can go into a 3-3-5 if you want, because we have a good amount of defensive backs here, very talented secondary room here coming back, man. It's very deep. So there's a lot you can do with this team this season, EJ. But how's your overall feeling on what's going on in the transfer portal and what some of the new additions we've had this season?
First of all, can I just say this is just a beautiful roster. SwampCast putting in work for our viewers, right? You won't find that anywhere else. Yeah, it was crazy. Like across all divisions, there were like 10,500 players, 3,200 were in FBS. Um, and like you said, 1,200 still haven't found a home. Um, so we'll still see what happens there as these rosters start to fill out. But it looks like Swamp 247 and only Gators reported that we've got about 25 transfer additions with 34 outgoing transfers. So we have like a net -9 right now in terms of our roster. A lot of places are saying that our portal class is top 10 nationally, and a lot of emphasis have been put on some of these new assistants bringing in some of these players. Stockton, Moore, Harping, Philo, we'll talk a little about them, but all four of those guys from Georgia Tech because of Faulkner, Shanahan and Boyer, with the offensive line at Penn State, so Troutwine brought in some guys. And then also Cam Dooley from Kentucky came in with Brad White. So that's another strategy. If you're getting new coaches, get the coaches to bring some of their players with them. Overall, I'm gonna when we start going through the positions, maybe we can give each one like our own personal grade. See what position groups we still should be targeting for those 1,200 players that are still out there in limbo land.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, us definitely do that. We can start with the offense then, man. The quarterback position. This one doesn't really change. Hasn't changed at all. No really new additions
Yeah.
here. Of course, you got Aaron Philo, 76 on PFF. Tramel Jones coming back, man. I think he's still redshirted, right? I think he redshirted last year. Um,
Yes.
and then you have Will Griffin obviously coming in as a true freshman over there from, I believe, Tampa. And so Tampa, Florida. So this is a pretty talented quarterback room, right? I mean, the stuff that I'm seeing, the more I look into Aaron Philo, he has a lot of upside. Like you said, broke, I think, all of Trevor Lawrence's Georgia high school records. The guy's very, very talented. Just haven't really found his footing at the college football Power 4 level yet. But has a chance, following Buster Faulkner, like you stated, to the University of Florida. I think overall, a grade I would give for this one. There's not really a big standout guy, but it is pretty talented. I might go with like maybe a B minus. I think there's some definitely high upside here, but that's probably where I'm landing at with
Okay.
quarterbacks.
When I look at the style of offense and the style of defense for both these coordinators, it's multiple, right? That we're going to do a lot of different things, uh, both with the quarterback, the running back, the offensive line, and the formations. And I think when you're looking at Philo, I think the one benefit that we've talked about is he at least understands Buster Faulkner's terminology, his style, his philosophy, and what he's trying to accomplish over the course of a game, even though he hasn't really played a lot. He did start one game last year and for Georgia Tech, which is great. So did Tramel Jones. Tramel Jones also had one full game against Long Island Ice Tea. Well, not one full game, but you know what I mean. I would probably say a B as well. I'd probably say a B. And to get an A, you're going to have to bring in one of these top rated quarterbacks, kind of like what Miami and Notre Dame do every year. But I think the positive is you've got two highly rated players that have broken records, and Will Griffin is also a 4-star. Um, you know,
Gatorade
lots of
Player of
tool
the Year, right?
Gatorade Player of the Year, lots of tools in the toolbox for him, and some guys who are physical. Now you don't have to necessarily be able to run. You don't have to be Michael Vick out there, but you do have to be mobile. You have to be able to pick up some extra yards when it's available. You've got to be able to roll that pocket and be effective in throwing on the run as well, and be accurate when you do that. So, particularly in a Buster Faulkner type offense. So, I give it a B2, and I'm looking forward to the spring competition between Philo and Trammell.
100%. No, that I think that and the offensive line, I think, are two position groups that Gator fans are really going to be interested in. And okay, who's going to be the standout guy? You know what I mean? So I'm very excited about that as well. Next, we go to the running back group. Jaden Ball, Evan Pryor coming in from Cincy, 82 on PFF. Super, just a speed guy. We'll just leave you in the dust. And you got Duke Clark as well back there. You got to give us one an A, right? You have Jaden Ball, probably the best running back in the country, if not one of the best top three. You got Evan Pryor coming in. They just complement each other very, very well, and you have a really good depth piece in Duke Clark.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I just saw that Jacoby Jackson went to Ohio State. Did you see that?
I
What
did.
the hell was that? That was crazy. Yeah, I think CBS is calling Jaden Ball the $1 million running back. So a lot of people criticize the amount of NIL for the position because a lot of people are saying, well, a running back doesn't really get you a lot of wins. But I think for this team, it will, because if you're going to go into a season relying on unproven quarterbacks to throw you into victories, that's not a great formula. And I think what Sumrall and Faulkner have strategically thought through is we're going to be a run the ball first type team with short passing game to get our quarterbacks comfortable and up to speed to where we can start really taking some shots. I don't think you can just come out and start gunslinging it early, because we don't have quarterbacks that are have been proven to get out there and gunsling at this level right now. So I think hunkering down on Jaden Ball, and then also getting the Cincinnati running back in is also huge. I mean, you got this really RB1 power, thunder and lightning type of a combination. So I really like that. Pryor from Cincinnati had 500 yards. He had double-digit touchdowns across 2 years. He had 200 receiving yards. Just a great change of pace back. And then obviously Duke Clark as well. I would love to keep Jacoby Jackson. I thought Jacoby Jackson was a senior, which he was, but he didn't play last year. So he has another year of eligibility that he's going to use at Ohio State. I thought he's probably going to be a really good back for them.
Really good back. Yeah, no, he's going to be probably
Yeah.
RB2 out there, for sure, man. Guy that's going to get a lot of carries, and a very talented guy. Next one we have wide receivers out here, EJ. Very excited for this group, man. Dallas Wilson, Vernell Brown, and of course we added a few key pieces. And Eric Singleton Jr. coming in from I believe he was at Auburn, right, last year. Guy that was at Georgia Tech originally, though, and just did super talented. I believe 5-star coming out of high school, from Atlanta, Georgia, man. Dude who's been putting up heavy numbers every single year. They'll use him in the backfield. They'll put him out wide. And then you also add Jalen Lloyd. He is the transfer from is it Oklahoma State, I believe, right? Coming in from Oklahoma State. A guy who, for some reason, didn't play last year. He battled injuries early on when he was at Nebraska before he transferred to Oklahoma State, but another speedster. And a guy that, has a 70 on PFF from the 2024 season when he actually got some good playing time. And so a guy that, once again, is very, very quick. So you have a lot of speedsters out here. Yeah, and that's not even counting Justin Williams and Bailey Stockton, right? A lot of these kind of, newer guys that are coming in that are young. But I really love these additions to the wide receiver room that I thought we needed to add some more guys into, and we have a lot of good freshmen coming in. Whether it's a Davian, is it Gross. How do you say his name? The true freshman. Marquez Daniel as
It
well.
was gross.
That's
Yeah.
gross.
Davian
Yeah.
Gross.
And so these are very talented guys coming out of high school this season. And Justin Williams, like I said, an absolute weapon. And in an offense that uses a lot of motions, right? A lot of orbit motions, whatever it is. You're gonna you're gonna take the eyes of these linebackers and these safeties, and you could play, play all kinds of stuff and all different kinds of formations with that. Because, their eyes are going to be on, Jalen Lloyd and Eric Singleton coming around on, and even Vernell Brown, whoever you want, really, no matter who you get back there on this motion. But you got to watch out for Dallas Wilson on the outside. You got to watch out Davian Gross on the outside and Eric Singleton. There's so many weapons out here, AJ. I'm so excited to see this wide receiver core. I think it has a chance to be, I think it will be a top 5 wide receiver core in the country, but it has a chance to be the best.
Oh, 100%. Dallas Wilson and Vernell Brown, having those two opposite each other is just absolutely tremendous. Now, I'm probably going to give this wide receiver group, and this is just how I usually do things. I'm not going to give them a A. I'm going to give it a B to B plus. And the reason why I say that is a lot of this receiver group is based on potential, right? Because Dallas Wilson had an incredible Superman game against Texas, right? So he showed you what he can do, but we didn't really see him outside of that game, right? So I would love to see him healthy and see what he can really do for a full season. Same with Vernell Brown. Vernell Brown had a lot of flashes of just incredible athleticism, getting open, very difficult to defend. We had some intel that number 8 last year was the most difficult wide receiver to get a beat on, like how to defend this guy one-on-one. So there you go. Um, and then I really like Singleton. Singleton is probably the one that is coming in with the most true, like, starter type experience that I think is going to be kind of like that Pearsall level of experience bringing to the team. And Stockton and TJ Abrams. We got TJ Abrams coming back, and then obviously Davion Gross. So quickly back to what you were talking about the portal. So um, you know, while no new players can enter the portal, because that's the thing about the window. You can't enter the portal, but if you're already in the portal and you don't have a team, you can still get on a roster. So uh, outside of Lloyd and Singleton, maybe there is one more wide receiver that I'd like us to see.
We do have that one guy from Wake Forest coming in too, and I believe there's one other one. So like
Ooh, wait,
there's
what's his name? What's his
uh
name? Do you remember his name?
Mars or man, that's gonna bother me. But like, so that's what I'm saying. Like, these are just the three, the 3 deep kind of thing. But the wide receiver
Yeah.
room, I think, is loaded when it comes to depth. But yeah, we had the Wake Forest kid. I believe there's one other one as well that we brought in the wide receiver core.
Well, which one of our receivers? Let's play this game. Okay, let's play this game. It's called Who's Going to Be Like Malachi Tony? Who's going to be that guy that just catches everything and just gets open and nobody can guard you? Okay. Is it Vernell Brown? Like, can he be the Malachi Tony? I mean, Dallas Wilson obviously is going to be wide receiver 1, but I see Dallas Wilson as more of like a NFL outside, like jump ball,
Like
back
Marvin
shoulder.
Harrison or yeah.
Right, exactly. Like Malachi Tony is like a gadget, give him the ball in any kind of situation. That's very useful when you have a quarterback that's like, we don't know what these people are doing. So what do you think?
What I'm really excited about, I think there's 4 guys that could easily be that guy, right? You have Jalen Lloyd, you got Eric Singleton, you got TJ Abrams, you have Justin Williams, even Bailey Stockton. You have 5 dudes that are speedsters, that are guys that once again can be deadly in the amount of motions. I think if I'm not mistaken, Buster does like, I think 70% of his plays are like there's pre-motion in 70% of his plays offensively. And so he loves pre-snap motion. That's his thing. It gets the defense kind of offset. They don't know what's going on, right? They have to They have to, they can't just line up and go. It's like, okay, we got to line up. Okay, who's taking that guy? Or a lot of communication has to go into place. And if you match that, EJ, with a fast-paced offense, kind of like an Ole Miss or whatever it may be, that's scary. That's scary. You know what I mean? Because if you have all this motion going on, plus you're going quick, all it takes is, one miscommunication. You have TJ Abrams down the sideline. You have Dallas Wilson 50 yards down the field, one-on-one on a, 5'9" corner. You know what I mean? And so I think there's a lot you can do with that. So Justin Williams, I feel like, might be the most gadgety. But like I said, TJ Abrams with another offseason of a lot of development, man, a guy who I thought got open a lot last year. Keep an eye on TJ Abrams to, I think, really be, a dude who could catch the country by storm. Especially if obviously there's going to be injuries if someone does go down. I think TJ Abrams can step into that spot and surprise a lot of people.
100%. 100%. And I was just looking at these numbers real quick, just overall before we go to the next position group. So we've got 112 players on the roster so far. But the SEC limits you to 105. So, well, I think the NCAA. So some of these guys are going to get 6, 7. You know what I mean? So, like, what's going to happen? So we got like 7 guys that are going to not be on the team. So spring.
Better ball out. By the way, weightlifting, I think, started today or yesterday. Rusty Witt's posting all over his Instagram, man. So make sure you guys follow him on there. Same thing on his Twitter. The boys are already lifting, man. So we love to see that. So let's go to the tight end room, kind of correlation with the wide receivers, man. We did have Tony Livingston go into the portal. I think maybe even back into the portal. I think he went in, came back out, went back in it again. He went into the portal. You have Amir Jackson coming back, though, huge, alongside Luke Harping, right? Came in from Georgia Tech, 65 PFF. Not too great of run blocking, but a really solid receiving guy who I think had like 170 receiving yards this past season with Georgia Tech. 2 guys who I think were top 10 tight ends coming out of their class together, which is insane. And then you, of course, have Lakota Dupree coming in from James Madison, I believe, with a 72 PFF. A little bit better of run block, if I'm not mistaken, compared to Luke Harping. But definitely a guy who can be a receiving tight end. So this is one of the best tight end rooms that we've had in a long time. EJ, very excited about this. I think it's very deep. I think you have a lot of playmakers out there. And even if one of these guys is a disappointment, I think the other 2 can really step up and ball out. So I give, I'm with you. I probably give the wide receivers an A-, but tight end group, I'm giving this one, I'm giving this probably a B+ for sure.
Yeah, I have them at a B+ too. I think Amir Jackson, I mean, this guy was a former top 100 recruit. Like, to be a top 100 recruit in high school, people, you're talking about how many high schools? 50,000 high schoolers.
As a tight end.
Like, and to be a tight end and be like, this is insane. 6'5", he has wide receiver skills. Limited 2025, but I think he's got a really high ceiling, and with some good coaching, he could be really good. Harping obviously knows the whole Georgia Tech playbook, so that's great. And is it Dupree?
Dupree, I believe it's Dupree.
I think it looks like Dupree. I wonder where he's from. He's probably from France or something. Anyway, so coming in from James Madison. So I think it's very functional for what Faulkner wants, motion, play action, seam shots. You're going to get some seam shots. You're going to get some, some split flow runs. So, like, the offensive line is going to pull this way. Then we're going to hit them back door, run the other way. So it's a really fun offense to kind of watch. And these tight ends are going to be a big part of it.
I agree, man. I'm so excited. There's so many playmakers on this team. Now let's get into the offensive line. Okay, this is where I think it's a big question mark. And I think this is where you just kind of have to rely on Phil Troutwine to kind of be, hey, well, you have a history of great development, and we trust you with this process because, number one, the depth isn't the greatest here, and a lot of these guys are going to have to step up. So, listen, this is just my hypothetical positional, choices here for these guys. They can go all over the place, right? I don't know where guys can go to if they feel comfortable, on the left side or right side. I don't know. Nobody really knows. We'll see what happens this season. We have Caden Jones, Bryce Lovett coming back with Kanijah Harris, and Roderick Kearney. But then we also have a lot of guys coming in. Also, with Harrison Moore coming in for the center position, I'm probably going to fight with Jason Zamadella there. A very talented young guy that's been with the program for a few years now, who's gotten a lot of praise from people within the program as of even last year. TJ Shanahan coming in, and Egan Boyer. I believe they're both from Penn State, right? If I'm not, or Egan Boyer. Yeah, I think those are the two guys from Penn State. I might be wrong, but I think they were. You have, so we'll see what happens with those guys who were under Phil Troutwine, both really good recruits coming out of high school. Obviously went with him there and followed him over to the University of Florida. Desmond Green, true freshman coming in. Mark Faircloth kind of coming back, a guy who also, there's a lot of good rumblings, I believe, coming off of an injury, if I'm not mistaken, but a guy who's really well known in the program. Emeka Ugorji, pause. A guy who is coming over from Stanford. I believe started at the outside line, or not linebacker, offensive tackle position out there. So we'll see what happens with him. 46 on PFF, but he was a starter at the Power 4 level, and so we'll see how that translates over. Could be a good depth piece there, or even a good starter there, considering he's had a lot. And you see that a lot, especially with offensive linemen, right? You see offensive linemen, I think you see it the most, EJ, alongside quarterback, when it comes to just steps taken forward from that, freshman to sophomore year. And so I think Phil Troutwine can get him ready, because I think he was a true freshman last year. So that'll be interesting to see there. Tyler there, true freshman coming in, Carr as well there. And so, there's some good depth pieces here. And we'll see what happens. Like I said, this whole depth chart could completely flip on its head. I don't know. We'll see what happens in the offseason. But I think this is, for me, the position group to watch, because if you don't have an offensive line, Aaron Philo's not going to be able to get, game manage and do what he needs to do back there. Jaden Ball's going to have to do what he did this past season, and he can obviously do it, but he's got to, pile through 5 dudes, right at the line of scrimmage. We're not going to be able to get all the ball to these great wide receivers on the perimeter and down the field, and these great tight ends. So it's really going to come down to this offensive line. I think this is the one position group that I'm a little scared of, and I feel like is going to be the biggest question mark. But we have a really good positional coach coming in, one of the best in the country, EJ, a guy who understands the patch, as we call it, and the Florida Gator logo, who won a couple national championships here. And so we'll see what happens. But overall, I give this one probably a C+. I don't know what to expect from it.
I think it's a great grade. I give it a C+ too, and which is passing. Hey, but listen about this offensive line, guys. What were we thinking this time last year? Oh, all Americans. We're going to be running all over people. We're going to be 0 sacks given up, 150 yards rushing a game. We're going to be running over people. We're going to Miami people. That's what we were thinking. Then what happened? We got mollywopped when we played A&M in Miami on the lines, just like the year before. So this year, the expectation is, well, we don't really have any expectations. So I think at the very worst, we're probably going to perform at the same level we did last year in terms of offensive line performance. And we're going to have to hope that, like you said, that we're just going to Phil Troutwine our way to an offensive line that by the end of the year is respectable. I really like the center that we got from Georgia Tech. Is that Moore?
Yes,
Harrison Moore. I really like him because you look at his grades, and he played both center and guard at Georgia Tech. 0 sacks allowed on the guy that he blocked in 682 snaps. That's what I'm talking about. Like, we had a guy who was the Slaughter. I forgot who. I think we were playing Texas A&M. Do y'all remember that game? Number 9 from Texas A&M. He came around the corner, and I was like, guys. And then we were just like throwing our hands up, like, there's nothing we can do. He's just gonna sack you. And I'm just like, and then I was like, okay, well, here's the thing about Buster Faulkner. He understands, unlike previous offensive coaches, and I don't want to like ragdoll on them, but you can kind of tell that Billy Napier was an offensive mind that he didn't really care about matchups on the other team. He came in with his game plan and he was going to do his game plan regardless of what you were bringing to the table. Okay. That's not Buster. If Buster Faulkner sees number 9 coming around the edge, sacking us like there's no tomorrow, we're going to change the plays up. We're going to pull a guard. We're going to put a running back over there. We're going to do something so we're not sacked every 2 seconds. So that's the best news that we can talk about this offensive line. I think the interior is going to be strong. And so I think running up the middle, A gap is going to be kind of what you need to be able to do. Nowadays in college football, power run up the middle, 3rd and 1. You don't want to have to, if you don't have a good interior, you don't want to be like, oh, well, let's run to the outside. That's a 50-50 scenario on 3rd and 1, 4th and 1. You want to be able to just hike, boom, jump Superman over the line of scrimmage, or do the what was the guy the coach from Mississippi State?
Yeah, Mike
What was it?
Leach.
Mike Leach? Just give it to like a midget and throw it over the line.
Give it to me, man. Give it to me. I listen. You could easily toss me over, bro. Do what you need to do.
Right, give
Uh,
Logan the ball and then literally just throw him over the
Damn
line of
straight.
scrimmage.
Hey man, to get me on the field, do whatever. Dude, I don't care, bro. Put me against
We're
Ruben
nice.
Bain, I'll do it. But no, I agree. And what's good too about this offensive line though, EJ, is the fact that we have a couple of easy games to start out, right? So they're not just going to be thrown into the craziness to
Right,
start out.
right,
It's going to
right,
be a nice
exactly.
kind of get used to everything, kind of figure out the offense before you get thrown to, I think, Auburn, right? Is that first SEC school that we do play, first big game. It's going to be at Auburn, so that's going to be tough, but I think there's a nice kind of ramp up in competition for these guys, and I think that's awesome and what we need for this offensive line. So I agree. Interior is really good. Right tackle and left tackle, who's going to step up, right? I think Lovett and Jones with a really nice offseason
Yep.
will be able to develop well, and maybe even some of these transfers that come in will be able to help out, so we'll see.
Yes.
Um,
100%.
Beautiful, beautiful. All right, well let's overall with this offense, what grade do you give it, EJ?
So, it's between a B and a B plus. And a B is a good grade. It means you're, you know, an A, I would probably say is top, what is that? Top 25%, top quartile. Um, a B is probably like you're in the top 50, which I would love to be in the top 50. I would love to be, but we've got to sort of see in that FAU game, the spring and the FAU game, because in the FAU game, and this is how offensive lines work, just real quick, offensive lines and offense in general, there's only so much improvement you can really reasonably make from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. Some teams can accelerate that improvement. There are exceptions, but for the most part, that very first game of the year tells you what your potential is. And then by the time you get to the end of the year, like Florida State, Alabama, there were two completely different things, but Florida State fell off a cliff, but Alabama kind of got better, but they still weren't like an elite team, right? And they showed you that in the first game. So if we come out in that first game against FAU and we can't block, there's a FAU defensive lineman coming wide, coming around the corner. It's going to be a long year. So that's an important game. I give it a B. I think we have the potential to get to that A minus toward the end of the year, which will probably be like a 8-4 type season. But that's something that I would take in the first year on offense.
100%. 100%. Yeah, I'm probably going to go B plus as well. I think B plus is a solid place for them. I think that the potential, like you said, it could be, I mean, through the roof, right? If all these
Yeah.
guys play to their highest potential. But I'm thinking B plus is solid. Really excited to see. We'll come back to this too at the end of spring, at the end of fall camp going into the season, and with all the new updates and intel that we do get. So very excited about that. Well, let's just go ahead and dive into this defense real quick. I have a 3-4 and a 4-3 setup here. Originally I was like, man, we have no depth in this defensive line. This has to be a 3-4 because we have nothing there. We brought in a lot of transfers, especially these past few weeks, EJ, to really add depth to this defensive line. So now I'm like, okay, I love now that we're able to go to more of a 4-3. We can, you know what I mean? We're more flexible now with whatever. We can be a multiple defense. We can go to a 3-3-5 if we want. Now that we also added a lot of secondary pieces, and so a lot has changed on this defense. Let's go ahead and dive into it. We'll just kind of look at the normal kind of 3-4, and then we'll go to the 4-3. So we got you want to say his name?
Which one?
Samu.
Oh, Sam. Sorry, guys. I gotta reframe my brain here. Samu Tamanu Pepe.
Tamanu Pepe. Yep, guy coming in.
Tamanu Pepe.
Where did he come in again? Is it from Baylor? I think maybe not. I know DK Kalu, I believe, is from Baylor, but this guy might be as well if I'm not mistaken. So he is a huge nose tackle type of guy, kind of that Desmond Watson kind of player. He, I think, is 374 if I'm not mistaken, just a big body guy. So if you want to play that 3-4, when you want that nose tackle, throw him out there, right? If you want. You got, and like I said, these are just hypothetical positions. You can put whoever you want, wherever you want. But if you go 3-4, you got Brennan Bett out there as well with Kendall coming in as a true freshman. Defensive ends, you're looking at Cameron James and Emmanuel but EJ knows how to pronounce that.
Bedejo.
There you go. At the defensive end as well. He, I believe, had an 80 PFF grade coming in from, I think, Jacksonville State. Absolute monster. He's a Brit coming in. He's coming in, man. He's ready to go with the knife fights there in the trenches. And then we have Jeremiah McLeod, Joseph Mbachu coming back this season at the defensive end, spots there with Jalen Wiggins as a true freshman. Very excited about him. One of my favorite guys that we picked up with DK Kalu coming in as a transfer.
So I'm seeing here, since we made our notes, that Tamuna Pepe flipped to Colorado. Are you seeing? Yeah. Sorry, guys. I put my notes together Saturday, and this apparently happened like yesterday. So,
oh man.
Yeah.
So he committed Friday and then flipped Saturday.
Yeah, he committed the 6'3". He's from Baylor. Flipped his commitment from Florida to Colorado. Which, here's the thing. I mean, I'm actually, well, number one, we don't have to pronounce his name. So that's first. But it's interesting because it's kind of like, I would have thought that the SEC would have brought him a little bit more, exposure. But maybe the Colorado NIL deal was slightly better for him.
Probably. I mean, that kind of changes things a little bit. You still now don't have that big nose tackle guy that you kind of want. So that's not great. But so you might be looking at maybe, like I said, there's still 1,200 guys in the portal, right? You can still probably bring in a big body guy. And I know we have a few visits coming in from some bigger body defensive linemen as well. That could always be something. I mean, we have, one dude who's 6'5", 300 pounds, Southern Miss defensive lineman Mason Clinton, who I believe visited 2 days ago. And so that's a guy to kind of look out for. And, there's a few others. So we'll see what happens. I mean, I think that's definitely a little bit of a loss. I would have liked to get him, but like I said, you could still do a 4-3 for sure with Jeremiah McLeod, Joseph Mbachu, McCoy as a freshman, and I still think Emmanuel coming in is big, Cameron James, and in that spot. Yeah. So back with a 3-4 though, you have the linebacker group, which the only change there is you brought in TJ Buller, just a nice depth piece coming in from UCF. 32 PFF grade, but didn't really play too much. That's a bunch of limited snaps there. With the jack being Jaden Woods now coming back with LJ McCray and Jalen Wiggins. You can throw him up at the DN or the jack. You know what I mean? He's very flexible there. So I think that's a really, really good depth piece there for the jack and defensive end position. DBs, you're looking at Cormani McLean, Dijon Johnson, Javari Flowers, Ben Hakes III, CJ Brano coming in, a true freshman who's a really, really, really good. He's got to get a little bit of weight on him, but a really good piece there. And I believe, I don't think it's Kane Clark. I think it's Kanye, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's his actual name. With the 64 PFF grade, DB coming in from, I think, UCLA, if I'm not mistaken. So safeties, you're looking at DJ Coleman, Bryce Thornton, Alfonso Allen, Cam Dooley, Drake Stubbs, and Lagonza Hayward. And like I said, very similar to the 4-3 that you're looking at. Except instead of the jack position, you got Jaden Woods, LJ McCray, and Jalen Wiggins there at the other defensive end position. So yeah, EJ, really solid group here, I think. What do you think of the defensive line overall? Obviously, I think Samu not coming in is kind of a loss there, and I would have liked that. But I mean, what do you think about this group overall?
I think it's probably a B. Just the defensive line. Having those space pluggers is really important. Like Brendan Bett and Jeremiah McLeod, I think, are really important. Bet was, it's kind of a little bit of a bright spot, 40 tackles, 3 sacks last year. And McLeod, is a true freshman at 13 tackles. So that's something. And Oya Badejo coming in from Jacksonville State, he's 6'7". That's his height. He also had 40 tackles and he had 4.5 sacks last year. So now that is Jacksonville State. So it'll be interesting to see how that translates. But I think it goes back to what is the philosophy of Brad White as a defensive coordinator and how the current roster helps. We're going to have to get rid of 7 people and we're going to need to get more people. I've always said this and will always say this. The 2 most important positions that can get you from A to B, A being 4-8, B being you're a contender, is defensive linemen that can get off of blocks and get underneath blocks in the interior and get around the blocks on the outside and get to that quarterback, okay, and a quarterback. So right now we're going to rely a lot on coaching and development of these guys. But getting Woods and McCray back on that edge, critical. I think they're going to do a great job. The question is, the edges really excel when the interior guys take up attention, right? And so Bet McLeod and Oya Badejo are going to have to really show us something. And I would even add another guy, given that, Samu went to Colorado.
Got to get a big body guy. That's you need that. That's the foundation of your defense. Whether it's a 3-4 or a 4-3, right? You want one of those defensive tackles to be a big run. Just a big guy that can plug two gaps with one dude. So we'll see what happens. But definitely just something to kind of keep an eye on there for sure. So defensive line. Solid on the edge, in the middle, not great, but I think if you could throw Jeremiah McLeod and Mbachu there, in kind of that interior defensive line spot, I think that they're solid. I give it probably a B- at the moment. Yeah. I think the ends really carry it, but I'm probably gonna go B- or a B. So we'll see what kind of develops there in the next couple of days. The linebacker group, really, really good up front. Wish we had more depth pieces though. We got Aaron Childs, and Ty Jackson, Miles Graham, Miles Johnson, Jaden Robinson, and TJ Bullard coming in from UCF. So you got the jack if you're looking at the 3-4. So, you know, you definitely, like I said, probably want some more depth pieces here in the portal. So if you want to get a few more guys, but overall, I think it's a very talented group here, EJ, with some all three of your starters returning in Aaron Childs, Miles Graham, and Jaden Robinson.
100%. Yeah. I think the linebacker group will be the anchor of the defense. Graham and Robinson. Robinson is, physical, like Sam type linebacker, 50-ish tackles. He can actually, get after the pass or two on those type of, quarterback spy type situations. And then obviously Miles Graham being a legacy Gator is really, going into last year, I was like, him in pass coverage is going to be a challenge. He did a lot better than I thought in pass coverage. This past year, he had four pass breakups this past season. So I think I would actually give the linebackers an A-minus. The defensive line is what is going to worry me the most. We want Woods and McCray to be able to be all everything, like the Ja'Kai Polite or the Jonathan Grenard type guys that can get off that edge. You just have to have a guy on the interior that can help hold his ground and plug the gaps. And that's probably why Colorado went after, big money balling for Samu Tamunu Pepe, because this guy, you just literally just put him out there and he's gonna like the offensive line is gonna be looking at him like, well, what are we supposed to do now?
Right.
So like 376 pounds. So you need somebody like that. And so we'll see what happens. But I really like the linebackers. We need a little bit more depth though. So maybe I would go hammer time for another big guy in the defensive tackle position, and then maybe one more linebacker just so that you can have depth. Because if you're going to be playing, if you're playing I don't think we can play. To me, we got to play a 3-3-5.
Yeah.
Because if you play a 4-2-5, then one of your better players isn't on the field
Right.
because you got three really good linebackers and you don't really have four really good defensive linemen.
Yeah.
And then you got a lot of guys in the second. So you got to play a 3-3-5. You got to put your best players your best 11 on the field. And that's something Napier didn't do. Napier was out there, okay, half the best players are on the bench, half the game. And then he's like, okay, we'll put them in. This is their drive. And I'm like, no, put all the good players in now before they get injured.
Yeah.
so,
No.
so I think we're gonna do that this year. So that's I kind of like that.
I agree. Yeah, the 3-3-5 is probably going to be the best. But even with 3-3-5, you still want a big body guy. Just you're looking to have three traditional guys there on the line. So we'll see, man. But the good news is we do have the secondary depth, EJ. We can talk about that real quick. We only have the up to the third string, but there's guys behind these dudes that are younger or inexperienced as well. So we got Cormani McClain coming back, right? Another full offseason of development. I think he can be a really good guy. Dijon Johnson, I think, with some development, could really be that guy that you can throw out on the outside on an island with the best receiver, and he can kind of hold his own there. So I think that's a really big guy that's coming back. Ben Hanks, the third signed, coming back. I think it's a good depth piece. Javari Flowers, who I think is very, very talented if he can kind of find his spot there in that secondary. CJ coming as a true freshman is really good. Like I said, I think it might be Kanye Clark. I don't know, but I have Kane Clark on there. 64 PFF coming in. And then the safety group. I think this is a really, really fun group here. I think this is probably our most depth out of any spot on this team. You got DJ Coleman transfer coming in, 70 PFF. Bryce Thornton returning. Alfonso Allen coming back, right? If he can get better in pass defense, he can be phenomenal. Cam Dooley, guy coming in from Kentucky, 69 PFF, coming over Brad White. Lagonza Hayward coming back, a guy who got some playing time last year with Drake Stubbs. And so this is a lot of depth here, EJ, in the secondary, man. And I'm very excited to see what these guys do. I think that, there's not a lot of great guys, but there's a lot of really, really good guys. You know what I'm saying? So I'm probably going to give this group probably a B to a B plus. We're probably going to stick with a B.
Yeah, for defense, I go B to B. If there was like a B to B plus, like whatever, so like if a 3.0 and then a 3.5, I would say 3.25 is the GPA for this defense. Cormani McClain still can't get over the fact that he was the number one cornerback in the nation. So in theory, his floor should be a B. Okay, every single day. Dijon Johnson at that corner position, I really like him. Thornton and Dooley coming over from Kentucky, following Brad White. He kind of knows that scheme. He's this sort of a, big nickel kind of safety hybrid, like, that type of guy. Um, and Bryce Thornton, he had 56 tackles. He had a pick, last year. So, that's a B plus at least for me. And then DJ Coleman coming in from Baylor. He also had two interceptions and six pass breakups himself. Um, so the defensive philosophy of White is not too different now that I've came to look at, how's the defense going to be different from, Rob Roberts. It's not significantly different. It's just a little bit more reliable in terms of you're focusing on not giving up big plays. That's his big thing. Um, if we can set up a defense to where we minimize the opportunities to get 20 or 20-yard or more plays, we significantly reduce the chances the other team can score. Because remember, if you have a drive where you gain, I believe it's the stat is 25 yards. If you have a play where you gain 25 yards on a drive, the chances of you scoring on that drive go up by 50%. So Brad White's whole philosophy is, hey, let's just not give up any big plays. And then if we do that effectively, guess what? They're not going to score. And guess what? If they don't score, we win. so, and so the Kentucky defense, I think, has been very effective. It'll be interesting to see this group that he's going to be coaching is still more talented in theory, based on paper, than pretty much every defense he coached at Kentucky, other than that, I want to say the 2018 or 2019, his first year, maybe 2020, not 20, one of those years, maybe 2021.
Hey, you talking
That
about White's first season? I think that was 2018, 2019. They had a dirty team that year. I think it's when they had
yeah,
JJ Weaver or whatever.
yeah, exactly. Now,
Yeah,
like number 41, I remember, I
yeah.
forgot, I don't know what that, but they had actually a really talented, like they had several guys go to the league. So outside of that defense, this is probably his most talented defense, and you're still playing effectively the same schedule because Kentucky played Georgia every year. They played Tennessee and Florida and non-conference. They played sub out Louisville for FSU. Pretty much that. The last few years, Louisville's been the better team. So except for 2023, but other than that. Um, I like the defensive approach. If it's minimizing big plays, and then with the talent difference, I think that's going to give Brad White a little bit more leeway to be a little bit more risky and say, hey, let's actually blitz. Let's actually give the offense a little bit something different than what they're used to. And I like this flexibility in his play to set up the defense that way because the offenses that you're playing nowadays are just so fast break, spread, running with the quarterback, dump off to this slot receiver, run this way, throw it, shovel pass to this guy. And it's kind of like we just need a defense that at the end of the day, when you put an island on somebody, he can make a play. Right. And I think the way that Brad White's defense is set up, and now you have better individual talent in each of those positions, people will have the opportunities to make plays. But just like we saw with Miami, I think it was Miami. Um, it was a game, I think it was against Ole Miss. They dropped like five interceptions. you can't do. You gotta catch the interceptions when you're in position. We put you in position. Catch the freaking ball, and that's what we're going to have to do with this defense because I think that Brad White's going to give the team a lot of opportunities to make plays.
I agree. It's basically a modernized Ron Roberts defense. You know what I mean? It's
Right.
modernized. It actually is a bend and break that doesn't work. So we'll see what happens there. Very excited for that. All right. So there you go. So overall defense probably. I mean, we'll see what happens. I'm probably gonna go a B. I think probably B solid. I mean, we'll see if we
Yeah.
get some more pieces, but I'm gonna go a B on that. EJ, I think you said B as well, right?
Yeah, I said
B
B
B
for
plus.
defense,
Yeah.
B plus for offense.
Love it, man. Special teams, nothing really new. We just got two backups that we signed. Liam Padron transfer coming in for kicker, and Miller Feely transfer coming in for punter. Behind the two starters that came in from Tulane and Patrick Durkin and Alec Clark. So got some depth pieces there. Really solid. Excited for that, EJ. The punter is another Aussie. So love to see that, man. All right. Well, that's going to be our, roster, kind of final roster update for you guys, man. We'll see, like I said, maybe another couple additions will be really nice, but that's pretty much going to be the overall roster for this upcoming season.